Hello and welcome to our first Uillinn Connect for Adults. Today we're going to be painting bees, and the work is inspired by the work of Gabhann Dinners, who is the exhibition in Uillinn at the moment, along with Uillinn. Both exhibitions have to do with the issues of climate change, our relationship to nature, migration and absence. So in the exhibition by Gabhann Dinners, which is unfortunately not open, he has 3 little paintings of bees, and he studied some of the animals in West Cork for this exhibition. So 2 of the bees are mining bees, and he picked these particularly because mining bees are often kind of overlooked, but they're really important pollinators. So they're actually very rare in Ireland now, but they are found still in Glengarriff Wood. And the other bee he has is a yellow bumblebee, and sorry, I'll just check, a great yellow bumblebee, and that is actually no longer in West Cork and very rare outside of West Cork. So they're the 3 bees that he has. So I have just, obviously you can find some bees just online. I just found a little article about a bee, so I'm going to paint from that. So we are going to do 1 bee which is landed on a flower, and 1 bee which is in movement. So in Gabhann's exhibition they're all in movement, but we're going to pick 1 on the flower and 1 in movement to kind of just show the journey of the bee flying and then trying to find a flower to feed on. So the article has to do with dandelions and the importance of dandelions for the bees to pollinate. So they're just kind of waking up now, and they're going to be looking for food, and it was just kind of saying the importance of trying to leave some dandelions in your garden. It's encouraging you not to mow, but if you do have to mow, even just to leave some patches so that they have places to land. So this is the first image that we're going to work from. And so the materials that you need, paint, whichever kind of paint that you have is perfect. I'm just going to use a little palette, and you could also use acrylic paint. Gabhann uses oil paint, so if you have oil paint and you're able to use that, that's perfect. Acrylic paint, obviously, if you use less water you can get the nice kind of textures that Gabhann kind of has in his work, or if you use more water you'll get more of a kind of a watery effect like the watercolor palette. If you don't have any paints, just use pencils, or even just a stick to pencil. Whatever you have at hand is perfect. And paper wise, I've used 2 different kinds so that you can see. I've actually used cardboard for this one, so it's just a piece of white cardboard, and the watercolors go on fine on that. And then I've also used a piece of watercolor paper. You don't really want to use just any old thin paper if you're using watercolors, because the paper will just buckle. And yeah, so if you want to sketch out your bee and get an image first, I've sketched mine out already. So we'll get started with painting it. Brushes wise, I have a thin one and like a relatively thick kind of a square head one. So the first thing I'm going to do is my dandelion, and I also picked a dandelion, just 1 from my garden, just to kind of get another thing, kind of just to look at it in more detail. And yeah, so we're going to start with that. So I'm going to go for my lightest yellow, and so I'm going for a kind of a more lemony yellow for my dandelion, and then I will go for a more warm kind of a yellow for my bee. And I'm going to use my thicker kind of square head brush, and I'm going to use the kind of the side of my brush to get the kind of the spikes coming out. So in Gabhann's paintings, because the animals are in movement, he paints the paintings quite quickly, and he uses just kind of a few strokes of paint and brush strokes, and he's able to capture the animal really well in just a few kind of movements of the brush. But this one, since it's a bee actually landed on the flower, we're going to put in a little bit more detail than that. And you might want to mix your yellows a little bit in some parts for the dandelion. So mine's getting a little bit warmer through the center, so I'm going to put in a little bit more of a warm yellow in there, mixed in with my other yellow. So I have the top of my dandelion done, and so you can kind of see it there. And I'm going to pop in the little bit of the stem that I can see now. So I'm going to start with a dark green, and I'm going to go for my thinner brush, and then there's going to be a little bit of a light green as well. Don't mind if my yellow bleeds in a little bit, because that's kind of the fun of watercolors. Okay, and I might go over that a little bit more when it dries, and we can move on to our bee then. So I'm going to start with the lighter parts of the bee. So I'm going to start here with the kind of the warm honey kind of part. And I'm using my thinner brush, and I'm kind of brushing it with kind of quick kind of flick-like marks to try to get some of the texture. And I'm going to use a little bit of white as well, just at the top. And I'm going to do the bottom of them as well. So the rest of the colour of them is kind of a purpley kind of bluey black. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of black with a little bit of blue, and then I will also have a little bit of black with a little bit of purple. And I might just test those colours. So just a little bit of a hint of purple mixed in with the black, so it's not a pure kind of a black. And again, I'm using my brush, kind of like just even the tips of it in some places. And I'm seeing little kind of strands of yellow in here as well. And there's a really nice article written by Sean Cassane about Gabhann's work, and he kind of talks about how Gabhann has such he takes such pleasure in really kind of looking at the animals, and how that you can really kind of see that reflected in the work, that the work, although it deals with a serious subject matter such as climate change and animals going extinct, that there's still a kind of a joy to the work, that you can see the pleasure that Gabhann gets from actually looking at the animals. And I'm using some pure black in places as well. Can't really make out the eyes and things too well in this picture, so it's important just to paint what you see. If you can see things clearly, paint them that way. If you can't, just paint what you see. Don't try to make it up. Blue is getting kind of lighter towards the top, so I'm going to mix some blue or some white in with my blue. So he's a little bit wet there. Don't really want to, you can see my drip a little bit. And I'm going to put a little bit of a blue edge around it. So I'm not going to paint the whole sky blue, but I am going to do a kind of a little rim of blue around him. So first of all, I'm going to put water onto my cardboard, and I'm just putting the water around the edge. And then I'm going to get my blue, and I'm going to let that kind of bleed and just give it a little kind of a framing of blue all around it. A little bit lighter as it moves in towards the middle. And put a bit darker again on the edge. And that will bleed into it towards the center itself, because the water will carry it in. wet, so I won't hold it up. But you can see a little bit here. Okay, so we're going to move on to our second bee now. So this bee is going to be a lot quicker. So it's just going to be a few brush strokes really. So I'm getting my bee off this packet. So he's just nice and small, and I'm just going to use the colors of the warm yellow, the black, and then a little bit of white for his wings. Okay. And I'm going to start with the warm orange and just fill that in. And I'm kind of looking for blocks in this guy. So I'm blocking in his orange. And there's a little bit of a white shine on his head. So I'm going to put that in first. And then most of the rest of them is black, bar a little bit of yellow kind of on his feet. And his wings, and a tiny bit of yellow on the top of his feet. Clean my brush. I might just do a tiny bit of grey coming up the edge of his wings, just to help define them. Okay, so he's not too wet, so there we have that little bee. And I'm going to do the same thing around the sky. So I'm going to put a little bit of water all around my edges. I have more room in this one. I'm going to get a bit of energy into it. And in my blue. So I'm kind of using the brush and circular motions in this one. Dark around the edges. dab your brush to get a little bit of texture. And if you want, you can always, for the watercolor paper especially, if you take off a little bit of tissue paper, you can blot your paper a little bit as well. And that will just remove some of the water, and you'll also get a little bit of a pattern from the tissue. So you're taking off that excess. There. So there we have it. Okay. So you can decide yourself how much blue you want on your background. So we have our 2 bees, and this one is still a little bit wet. And so once the 2 of your bees are dry, what I'm going to do with mine is with these yogurt lids, I am going to pop them into that, and they act as a little frame for my bees. So you can use these and you can hang them. So you can punch a little hole with the little scissors, and you can put a little bit of string through, and your bee should just slot in, and you can use it as a frame. This is still a little bit wet, so I'm not going to use that now. I'm not going to do that now. Or else you could always just use it like that and hang it directly onto a wall. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope that you find some nice homes for your bees. Thank you.